his letter to the Romans, Paul speaks of the God of creation, about the hope in the world given by the Holy Spirit. I wonder, the Holy Spirit came to empower the disciples and to empower us all. But what are we empowered to do? How does this relate to caring for creation? That reflection and these pictures come from the Oakwood Forest Church, a group from St. Nicholas Early that seeks to worship God in the natural cathedral of a local environmental reserve. And they felt very appropriate for today as we move towards Pentecost and as we discuss common vision and our search to be a more Christ-like church for the sake of the world. More and more, we are all waking up to the dangers climate change and environmental degradation pose and the need for urgent action. We see drought in our linked Diocese of K&K, of which that's a picture. We see cyclones striking in Mozambique. We see the concerns of young people about their future. And like the people of Jerusalem at Pentecost, we're asking, how then shall we live? Or, to use our terminology, how do we become more Christ-like in our response to this? The Common Vision Environment strand is about helping us to resource each other and to be resourced by other people with useful specialist knowledge as we seek to answer these questions, each of us in our own way, in our own context. There are so many ways that churches are already doing this. The Forest Churches, St. Aldate's Daily Lent Reflections, All Saints Wokingham work on climate and creation time, the cathedral's working towards an environment policy. So in part, what we're going to be working on is sharing news about what's already happening. But we're also sharing 3 simple tools that will make it easier for every church to make a difference. One of these is the Parish Buying Program's Energy Basket, which enables churches to switch to a green energy tariff, one of the most effective things we can do, at competitive prices and without having to undertake masses of internet searching. Another is EcoChurch. Options and recommendations specific to your church. You can apply for up to £150 to implement them. We've only recently started, and so we're just getting the first responses relating to why people had the audit and what they hope it will inspire. And some of those you can see, possibly, on the slide. For me, one striking conversation was with a small rural church that undertook an audit as part of its planning to increase community use. We spent quite a bit of time talking about a recommendation about cold-proofing doors, and at one level it was quite technical. But it wasn't just about technicalities. What we were really talking about was how we care for our congregations, how we make our buildings more welcoming, and how we speak credibly to a worried world about Christian love. You can find more information about all of these on the environment section of the diocesan website. I think these are challenging times. We are going to need to set out in deep waters, and we will need courage. But we are praying for guidance to the Spirit that breathed over the waters at the time of creation. And these and other tools and movements that we cannot imagine will emerge to help us in what is ahead. And I'd close with something that was said. It's on one of the blog posts on the Greening St. John's spot, in which a preacher challenged the church and invited, it says, us to understand Jesus' instruction, do not worry, as something very different from do not care. It means not allowing anxiety to overcome us to the point of paralysis, but instead living hopefully and acting accordingly. It will be good to do that together.
There are 2 strands to the work of Working Group 1, looking at making a bigger difference. One is about the environment. The second is about the way we do our community engagement. And what we want to do is to spend a bit of time working with an organisation called Citizens UK at exploring how we develop the way we work with people in need, rather than necessarily doing for, or worse, to people in need. And this is all about this thing called community organising. So I'm going to give you a brief story rather than a detailed explanation of what that involved. So here is a lovely picture of a gathering in Milton Keynes just 2 weeks ago. It's part of our early pilot and exploration of what this might look like. There's me. You might just about be able to see me in my white jacket next to the Mayor of Milton Keynes. And we are welcoming in 20 different communities from the city. Many of them are churches, but there are also mosques, schools, and other groups. And these groups are working together to talk about what life should be like in our city. John's going to tell us a little bit more of a local story about a church member.
I'm John Robertson. I work as the Director of Ecumenical Mission for Milton Keynes. And I've been working with Tim with some of this community organising stuff. And one of the things we've been doing is building on that method and putting a programme together which we call Leading for a Change, which puts those kind of practical community organising tools into a Christian framework. We kind of front load the programme with some teaching sessions and then support people in a project that they've identified through regular kind of action learning set groups so that they feel supported all the way throughout the year. We've had 20 people take part so far, and one of the people who's taken part is somebody called Elise. And Elise goes to a big barn of a church on the kind of southeast corner of Milton Keynes. And it's a church with a lot of space, but it's not greatly used except on a Sunday. So she started to think about how that space might be better used during the week. And she did something quite radical. She started to talk to people in the community. So she talked to the local policeman and found out that what the police really wanted was somewhere to have a comfort break. And she talked to the local health visitors who had nowhere in the area to hold a clinic, and began to find herself through those one-to-one conversations, finding out what people's interests were, what was going to do it for them, began to find herself in a position to do something about it. So she starts to connect the health visitors with a coffee morning, gradually turning the building into a space that's used and connects the community into the church, and enabling the church to connect with the community. See how it's come out of those community organising things about one-to-one conversations, about doing your research, not behind a computer screen with lots of numbers, though you might do that, but by talking to people and finding out what it is that they want and will help them to connect. So it's built on very much a listening kind of thing. And what that does is to grow the confidence of the community in the church and the church in its community outreach. They're terribly small steps. They sound incredibly obvious, but they're actually quite radical. Let me encourage you to do the same.
We can't tell you everything about what this particular project involving community organising will involve. There will be training, there will be opportunities, they will develop over time. But here is a lovely picture of some of our kids from the school doing business with the local council. These are children from our most deprived schools in most deprived areas, persuading the council leader, the poor guy in the red jumper at the bottom, that he needs to do something about the cycleways and walkways in the city. And he did.